Thank you for that introduction, Shantikara. While you were giving me that introduction, Yashadeva was sniggering in the back, so I will be seeing him later. Yeah. So my talk is on this line, direct your prayers to the lamas. And this is a line that could go in many different directions, but I'm hoping the direction that I'm going to go in is going to work for all of us, okay? And I'm hoping to cover a few topics: vision, faith, a life of values, friendship, discipleship, and a receptive mind. Before chai, yeah. So I will start with the extract from the canto. Then Nang Chung, the glorious noble queen, invited the Guru, that second Buddha, into the temple of turquoise dedicated to her tutelary deities. Piling up on a precious throne fine silks and tables of divination, and regaling him with many pleasing things, she greeted him respectfully and made this request. Give me a few words of great import, an effective verse which I can memorize. Though I have not renounced the world, I would like to cherish within me a doctrine which at a later date will lead me to Buddhahood. To this the Guru replied, Listen, Queen Nang Chung. To begin with, pay urgent attention to impermanence. Then strongly turn your mind towards taking refuge and direct your prayers to the lamas. These are the preliminaries without which no means exist. So I'm just going to go through some of the terms that this line covers, unpack it from there, okay? So lamas is the Tibetan word, and it could be blama or it could be guru, meaning a teacher, guide, master of a certain knowledge. I like the word guru. Guru originates in Sanskrit. Gu indicates darkness, and ru indicates destruction. So a guru is considered a dispeller of darkness. Now, how fabulous is that? In this world of darkness, that there are dispellers of darkness. In Triratna, we tend to talk a lot about the need for Kalyana Mitrata, a need for spiritual friendship. And I'll say more about that later. But we also need a teacher, we need a guru, we need a lama. And they're something more than a Kalyana Mitra. It is someone that's distilled the great body of Dharma teachings, the great teachings, into a unified map with its own distinctive approach, its own interpretation and mode of practice, all of that based around that teacher. And that particular approach attracts a certain kind of person. It attracts a community around it. That community gathers around that person or gathers around that body of teachings or that mode of practice because their values resonate with the values that they're seeing in that pattern, in that life described and designed by that guru. And those people around that guru, but people around that lama, begin to share their lives with each other in a way just like it happening here, whether it's the chai, decaf, shrine room, communication exercises, whatever it is. And you've got a shared language, you've got a shared understanding of what the practices are that you're doing in the morning or just in your communication with each other. And then there's this word prayer. So Sangharakshita says, I suspect the Tibetan word that being used is Mon Lam, which means path of aspirations. So it's not a prayer in terms of petition. It's not asking for good weather tomorrow, although I think that could be a good prayer, to be honest, actually, right now. We could all pray quickly for good weather tomorrow. But it's a path of aspirations towards enlightenment. So you're directing your prayers, you're directing your aspirations to the Lama. So what is it you're really doing here? Bhante says, are you literally asking the Lamas to give you something? Well, it may take that form, but again, you must be very careful. The language might seem like that. Sometimes it is like that. But what is the basic intention? What are we really doing when we ask a teacher for something? And somebody in the discussion that when this canto is being discussed, they say, well, are you seeking guidance, maybe? And Bhante says, well, yeah, but what are you doing even before that? What's going on before that? And then someone says, you're being open. You're being open to the teacher, open to the teachings. And Bhante says, yes, you must be open. You must be receptive. You must place yourself in communication with the Lamas. Just be open to whatever influence or whatever instruction comes from them. So these are not prayers of request to someone, but a setting of one's own intentions. And we're doing it in a way that establishes an openness, an open mind, a receptivity to something that's going to take us further, something that's going to draw us further. And it's a recognition that the Buddha or a teacher or a spiritual friend can support these aspirations in us because they are already exemplifying them. And when we voice our prayers, when we voice our aspirations, then we begin to start moving from just thinking about something to actually beginning to do something about it. Our aspirations start becoming more and more concrete in our lives. So then we've got this line, direct your prayers to the Lamas. And I'm just thinking about this word direct. Our mind is always moving in a particular direction. Our mind is always directed. This direction often comes out in our speech, in our movements, our actions, our thoughts. A lot of what we do reveals a directionality. And Sangharakshita says in the same seminar, he says, in Pali there are two terms which signify this directionality. There's the Kama Chanda, distinguished from the Dhamma Chanda. So karma being a sensuous experience, and often our mind is directed, our actions are directed towards what is pleasing, comfortable, sensuous. Our senses are involved. And Chanda is a very powerful motivating force. It's more than just an interest. It's more than just a direction. It's a real urge to go there, a real urge to move towards that thing. So we're trying to channel that appetite, channel that thirst, that urge, away from just a world of senses into the world of values, Dharma Chandra, towards the Dharma, towards learning about ourselves, towards something higher, something more of value. So these powerful urges need to work together. They're often in conflict. Sangharakshita says, sometimes it's like we've got these two horses pulling a chariot, and there's a huge amount of energy, they're galloping and galloping, and then there's a fork in the road, and the horses want to go down one way, and you've got to rein them in and turn them in another direction. Now, how are you going to do that? This is what we need to do with that energy. You can't do it. You can't kill the horses. You need that energy. You can't sort of constrain them so strongly that they can't move. So how are you going to do that? You're going to have to really redirect them. They've got to go with you. You've got to go with them, and they've got to go with you. You know, they've got to want to go down that other track. So you've got to find something in the spiritual life. Find something in the Dhamma Chanda that's as interesting and as nourishing and as exciting as all the other desires that go on for us. So direct your prayers to the lamas is a preliminary instruction without which no means exist. So it's just part of these instructions that we're hearing on this weekend. Bhante says, if you try to take up any sort of spiritual practice without the preliminaries, you're virtually wasting your time. I mean, it's surprising that he can really mean it as strongly as that, but that's what he's saying. If you're not aware of impermanence, if you don't really commit yourself, and if you're not open and receptive to higher spiritual influences, then you're going to be wasting your time. So let's talk about vision. All of us have a vision. It's very embryonic. It's often unarticulated. We often are very unaware of it. It's an unconscious sort of aspect of ourselves. I was thinking about that on the first evening, actually, when Kashantakara was leading us through those communication exercises. I think one of the questions was possibly, why have I come here? Why have I come on this event? Yeah. So I was with a couple of people, and one of them just said simply, well, I want to be with like-minded people, and I've been away from a lot of communication recently, just in lockdown and everything like that, and I just want to be with people that I can just talk openly with. And somebody else said, well, I have a partner that's interested in Buddhism, and they were coming here, and they said, why don't you come too? But I didn't want to come. And then I thought, in the middle of the night, or maybe it wasn't the middle of the night, suddenly, yes, I'm going to do that. So I had an intuitive response, I'm going to come. And then I think another of the questions was something like, what am I most concerned about? Or what am I most frightened of? Or something, yeah? And one of the persons that I was with, one of the people that I was with said, I'll get distracted by my attraction to other people, and I won't engage at the level that I really want to do. So all of these are very simple statements. Any of us could have made those statements, I'm sure. But they all express underlying values. A value of deeper connection, a value of integrity, value of authenticity, and a value of growth and creativity. I mean, those people won't have been aware of that, but that is what's happening. So our values are showing up all the time, but we're often unaware. So when we talk about creating or developing an open mind, a receptive mind, one of the people that you're going to be hearing is yourself. You're going to be hearing yourself. And you're going to be hearing yourself on a much deeper level, if only you'll let yourself do that. We hear those values, or we see those values also being mirrored in relationship to other people. Sometimes somebody says something, maybe in a talk, or on the volleyball pitch, or around the campfire, or in the, I don't know, just on the train even. And we feel a kind of resonance towards that. There's something in that makes sense to us. What is that response? There's something in us that goes, yes. Or maybe we see an action, maybe an action of kindness, or an action of integrity, like somebody's talking in a group and they speak with a deeper level of honesty, and you think, yes. Or somebody who smiles a lot and is very cheerful, and then they're in a group and they say, I'm really not happy. And there's a bit of you that says, yes. What is that? What is that response? So notice when that response shows up. I would call it a response of faith. It's a faith response because it's a response to values. It's a resonance in you that's resonating with something out there. Yes, just say yes. Notice where that yes shows up. When you begin to notice that faith response, when you begin to notice what you really respond to, your heart really responds to, with integrity, then you're beginning to learn who you are, and you're beginning to learn what your spiritual life, how your spiritual life is going to unfold. It's the beginning of finding meaning, real meaning in your life. It's a life of value. So what I'm describing is a path of vision. So the path of vision can be a path of beauty, a deepening sense of truth, of beauty, of nobility, of ethical uprightness, of sincerity. But a path of vision can also be a shocking path, in which our habits are confronted and even broken. Maybe that happens through a communication with somebody, or it might happen just through an incident in life, an illness, or an accident, or just something unexpected. And when that happens, it's like, how does Bhante put it? We're confronted by something that is quite existential. We're confronted by higher and further possibilities of human existence. So this is the path of vision. So however it happens for us, we will already be a bit on the path of vision. And that's, for some of us it's more developed, and for some of us it's more known, and for some of us we're just starting. But the fact that you're here means something brought you here, and that will be of value. And you might not know totally what's brought you here for another few years, but all of it is going to add up to your life, what really gives your life meaning. And then, of course, you're coming into contact with Buddhism, with the Dharma, with teachings. And the Dharma isn't just like teachings about Buddhism. If it's just teachings about Buddhism, what is that? That's nothing. It's teachings about life. It's about how to live your life. It's not about how to be a good Buddhist. It's teachings that can be applied in universal situations, in an existential situation. Bhante says, it's not easy to be touched by the Dharma. You've got to really be disillusioned and not just disgruntled. A lot of people turn to the Dharma, or what they think of as the Dharma, only when they've been disgruntled. But that's not going to motivate you long enough. You've got to become disillusioned. So I'll just say a little bit about the difference between these two. So disgruntled is a bit like, you really like fresh coffee in the morning and all they've got is instant. Right? That is pretty annoying, okay? And that can also be a little bit of suffering. It is a second world, it is it's not a first world, it's a first world problem, that's what it is, isn't it? Yeah, it's a first world problem. I'm getting confused. It's a first world problem, that one, okay? But it's uncomfortable for a few of us, okay? That is disgruntled. But disillusioned is realizing how much you are driven by preferences. And that system should be broken at some point. Yeah. And only the Dharma is going to break that system for you. Yeah. Otherwise, you're always going to be disgruntled by your coffee or your decaf or your whatever it is. But disillusioned, that's something else. That means there's something that doesn't quite work here, and I'm going to try and rise above it. So when we become a bit disillusioned with these things, we're on the path of vision. But I need to warn you, the path of vision carries a cost. Okay, so I'm now going to tell you what the cost is. The path of vision will lead to the path of transformation. And this will involve your whole life, I'm afraid. Okay. I don't know if anyone's told you that before. Anyway, this is what's going to happen. I don't know if it's quite a safeguarding situation, but anyway, I'm just warning you that it is what's going to happen. If you really engage, okay, your whole life is now going to change. So to walk the path of transformation means that we're going to learn how to bring our values into every aspect of our life, into our communication, into our sex life, into our friendships, into our work, into our relationships with our parents, whatever it is. We're going to bring those values into those situations. And that is going to be challenging. And it's going to take quite a lot of skill. And it's going to take quite a lot of kind of virya, energy and determination and kindness, actually. And to be on a path of transformation is to be on a path of learning. We've got to gradually learn how to become more aware, what's really needed. We're going to learn how to be agile in those changes and transformation that we're trying to make. We're going to become more accomplished in that spiritual path, in that path. So learning requires a teacher. Learning requires practices. It requires training. It requires support systems. So you're going to try and maintain a strong vision and deepen your commitment to this path of learning and training. And you'll begin to change your life. I love this idea of being committed to learning, being committed to change. When I was many years ago, I was reading a book about a child who'd been born very disabled, and it was undergoing a form of training to help that child function more normally. And the mother was very distressed by all the input that this child needed to have, and sometimes the child didn't want to do it. And she would try and woo the child with food and ice cream. But then one of the teachers came in and the teacher gave the child further instruction. And the child obeyed. It just followed the teacher. And the parent afterwards said, why did that happen? It didn't want to, I was offering ice cream and it wouldn't do the thing, but you came in and you made it do the action. You made it change its behavior, made the child move. And the teacher said, when a child is this age, it wants to learn more than it wants to eat. And I thought, wow, what a great way to engage with life, that you want to learn more than you want to eat. It's a tall teaching, isn't it? Yeah. Right, we're all falling short right now. But anyway, hands up who had seconds. Yeah, forget it. When you start dieting in 10 years' time, you'll have learnt, I tell you. Okay, so we need a path of transformation. So we're learning to become aware of our deepest values. And to begin to engage with our deepest values is to engage with a very demanding guru, an inner guru. And this inner guru is going to have an integrity and a fine eye for detail. And that guru is going to want to hold you to your aspirations. So this is going to be quite an internal struggle with you and with me. So it's going to be a life of learning and of challenge. We're going to recognize our limitations. I recognize my limitations all the time. We're going to recognize all those parts of ourselves that don't want to change. And even more frightening and even more challenging, we're going to begin to recognize our potential, the strengths and creativities that are dormant within us. And on the basis of that vision, we unleash a desire to grow and to change. And we begin to notice what conditions help and what conditions don't help. So if you're fortunate enough, you come across people that will support you in that process, who are also doing the same thing. And some of them will be peers, and some of them will be further along the path. So life that is created around values and a vision means that you're entering into a relationship with a myth. Now, I wonder if you know what your myth is. That's something that's going to gradually come through with the values as you begin to tune in with them. Part of my myth is probably to serve, just to be used up fully by a strong purpose. It doesn't have to be even my purpose, as long as it's somebody's purpose that I actually are willing to serve. To be used up fully. I'll never use myself up well. I'll always want to lie down. I'll always want to do something else. But to be in service means to give myself over and over again. So that's part of my myth. Another part is the artist. I went through art school and I've got a creativity. So a lot of that the artistic nature comes through in communication, but it also comes through in terms of just how I live my life and how I engage with it. But these two myths are very strong in me. Sometimes I think of it as the myth of the monk and of the poet. Again, very, very strong myths. So we come in contact with a myth. We come in contact with a series of teachings, or a community of friends, or a teacher. And in the words of Padmasambhava, we begin to strongly turn our minds towards taking refuge, and we direct our prayers to the lamas. So I'll just say something about friendship. So maybe you're having a taste of that just here this weekend. You've got a lot of peer friendships. Most of you are around the same sort of age, maybe being involved with a similar amount of time. So these peer friendships are great. You learn a lot from your peers, and you get to explore a lot with peers. You're exploring who you are. You're exploring who they are. This is great. This is a great arena for growth. And then you've got other kinds of friendships of what we call Kalyana Mitra friendships, spiritual friendships which are more vertical. They bring a more vertical dimension into our experience. So maybe they bring in a fresh perspective. Or maybe they just draw something different out of us, something which is still very embryonic, that nobody else has seen. It's tremendously beautiful to be seen by somebody else and to be understood by somebody else and to feel that drawn out of us and to be in communication. I want to read you a little extract from one of Subhuti's books, which describes something of this. It comes under the section on self-disclosure. I just love it. We need someone who can see and draw out who we are, or rather who we are becoming. Each of us has an inner world full of thoughts and feelings that are amorphous or embryonic. We can only give them their proper shape through communication. Whenever we succeed in communicating them, we are changed, becoming someone new. Our best friends, the ones who care about us and understand us deeply, are creative listeners, partners in our act of self-creation. They are not spectators at the unveiling of a statue, but midwives, helping us to bring something, ourselves in fact, into the world. So we need friends with whom we can achieve a measure of self-actualization. The best kind of friend is therefore someone who, to coin a phrase, helps you unravel yourself to yourself. And the most important kind of unraveling is to do with your understanding of life and what matters most in it. An exploration that is, in a sense, more philosophical than psychological. This is the deepest part of what one is missing when one feels lonely. A recognition of oneself as an individual with a unique, unfolding mind. A friend who gives us such recognition is precious indeed. Sadly, many people never experience this kind of friendship. So I'll just mention a few encounters I've had with Kalyana Mitras. So one of them was at art school. I was at an art school in London, prestigious art school in London. And I'd been there for a couple of weeks, and we'd been set a drawing project, and I was obeying the instructions and doing a good drawing. And a couple of tutors came round, and one of them said, "Oh, this is a very good drawing, don't you think?" And she turned to the other tutor, and she said, "It's a very good drawing, isn't it?" And he said, "Yes, very good drawing." As you do. And then they went. But then he came back. And then he came back. And he said, "I should never have said, 'This is a good drawing.' What I should have said was, 'Anyone who can draw like this should be drawing something much, much better.'" Okay, so what did I receive then? I received a pointing out instruction, which was, "This is good, you're talented, but you're not stretched. You're not creative. You've got the technique, but you're not creative. So I'm looking at you. You're good. You're young. You're talented. Are you creative? Are you making the best of your lives? You might be able to do a good drawing, but are you creative? You got the techniques? What's more than that?" Another tutor at art school, art school, you put up all your work after every 3 months, and your peers and your tutors stand in front of it and tell you what they think. Yes. And anyway, I put up a lot of work, and the tutor said, "This is just not enough." I said, "But it's loads of work." She said, "Yeah, but for you, it's not enough." And I learnt something there, which is more like, you can't be evaluated in comparison to others. What's enough for someone might not be enough for you. Again, it's the stretch, isn't it? What do you need to give to be more than who you are? And she was saying to me, "This isn't enough for you." And then on a retreat many, many years ago at Taraloka, there was a Dharmacharani that I'd never met before, and I was living in Glasgow at the time, and there weren't many Dharmacharanis, and certainly not north of Birmingham. So there I was on this retreat, and I was walking around the field, and I bumped into her, and there must have been a way that I was presenting at that time, where she just looked at me and she said, "In, out, deep, slow." You laugh. It was funny the first time. So the second time, when I was walking through the lounge or something like that, and she went, "In, out, deep, slow." I mean, it was still kind of funny. But when I was queuing to make an offering in the puja, and she happened to stand next to me, and then she said, "In, out, deep, slow." Then I was getting unravelled. Yeah. And at that time I was living alone in Glasgow. I'd been living in communities for about 5 years, but I had a year out, and I was on this retreat, and I thought, she is doing something to me. She's reflecting me back. She's pointing something out. And this is having a big effect on me. And I need a life where I can receive that kind of input. And I contacted my friends in Glasgow, and I said, I need to start living in community again, because I need this kind of input. So apart from that 1 year, I've lived in communities since 1984. I need that kind of input. Okay, just couple more pages. When we direct our prayers to the lamas, we are standing as someone that wants to learn. We are standing, in fact, as a disciple in relationship to a teacher. We are standing as someone who is receptive and who wants to train in the discipline. So Queen Nang Chung is an exemplary disciple. She's very focused in setting up the conditions. Do you notice that? She's moving the cushions around, she's sorting the environment out, she's building up a place to receive Padmasambhava. So she's not setting up the conditions for a photograph that can be used on social media. Okay. She's not getting him to sign the visitor's book when he arrives so that she can talk to the neighbours later. She's only got one thing on her mind. I am meeting my teacher, and this is an opportunity that might not come again. I need to use it well, or I will regret having missed something precious. So she's setting up the conditions for communication. So there's an external setting up, and sometimes we do need to set up conditions for good communication, although sometimes it just happens spontaneously. Sometimes the conditions just come together. But internally, we also need to set up the conditions. So she's building in herself a receptive, open mind, a humble mind, just preparing the ground to meet her teacher. You could say she's building the Kalachitta, the mind made ready, or the prepared mind, the mind made ready to receive the teachings. So Chitta is heart, mind, mind, heart. Could be described as attitude or disposition or mindset, inclination. And the Kala means prepared or ready. And there's a lovely image for a ready mind, for a prepared mind, and that is a piece of white cloth. White cloth that can take the dye of the Dharma, can be stained by the dye of the Dharma. It reminds me of when the Buddha first got enlightened and he was wondering about whether to teach the Dharma. And he looked around and he thought, this teaching is too subtle and too obtuse, and it's going to be very hard to teach other people when their minds are so stained or dyed in craving and lust. Yeah. So he sees these minds he sees our minds as stained, and often they are. But Queen Nang Chung is creating in herself a mind made ready to receive the Dharma. But a lot of the time our mind isn't prepared like that. In the Zen tradition, you get these great images of a cup. The mind is like a cup, ready to receive something. You might know some of these stories. Like one of them is, there's that lovely story, very famous story, where there's a Zen master and a scholar comes to visit him, and the scholar says, will you give me a teaching? And the Zen master says, okay, I can teach you the Dharma. But every time the Zen master speaks, the scholar interrupts. He's always got his own thoughts and his own opinions. And the master says, well, it's like this. And he says, oh yeah, but what about that teaching? And he keeps chipping in and adding things in. And eventually the Zen master says, should we have a cup of tea? And the scholar says, oh yeah, that's a good idea. So the teapot arrives, cups arrive, and the Zen master pours the tea into his visitor's cup. And he pours it until the cup is full, and then he keeps pouring it. And the tea overflows the cup into the saucer, overflows the saucer onto the table, overflows from the table onto the scholar. And the scholar says, stop, the cup is full. Can't you see the cup is full? What an idiot. And the Zen master says, exactly, you are like this cup. You're so full of ideas that nothing else will fit in it. Come back to me with an empty cup. So a cup is a good metaphor for the mind. So there's a few other images or metaphors that the Zen school, the Zen tradition uses. It might not just be the Zen school, actually. So you've got a cup that is full of, is already too full. Yeah, we've got that already. The mind is already too full of its own opinions, its own ideas. It's already, it's all preconceived, so it can't receive anything new. And then you've got a cup that's full of poison. And this is an image for the mind that is full of negative emotions. And any teachings that go into that cup are going to be distorted and filtered through that view, through that negativity. And then you've got a cup that is cracked, the image of the mind that leaks away any impact of the teaching. So we might hear a teaching, but then it disappears very quickly. It never stays with us. We do not remember it, or we do not experience the impact of it. So I just want to make one last point. To tread the path of transformation, to tread the path of learning and training, is to need to develop a ready mind to receive the teachings, and to receive the teachings from teachers and from friends. And all of this adds up to the path of a disciple, the life of a disciple. So I'm happy to be a disciple. And a disciple is someone whose purpose is to learn. In the Pali canon, it's savaka, which means, it comes from the word suti, meaning hearing or tradition or inspiration. And savaka is therefore translated as hearer or disciple. Another word that means disciple is seka. This comes from the word sika, which means study, training or discipline, as in our ethical precepts, sikapadam, a rule of training. So seka is one undergoing training. Are you willing to be one undergoing training? So these two things, this gives us a good sense of what a disciple is. It's one that listens to ourselves and our inner values, and learns and listens to a teacher, and then puts into practice the things that it learns, the things that we learn. So the disciple needs to be sincere and intelligent. I think some of us are very sincere, but we're a bit too quick to accept everything, too quick to accept the teachings. We haven't really tested it through our own experience. And some of us are very intelligent and understand the Dharma, but we're not sincere or totally straightforward in our relationship to learning or our willingness to learn. So direct your prayers to the Lamas. Direct your aspirations towards something higher. Stand in relationship to something higher, to a path of value, to a path of transformation and vision. Be receptive to the teachings. Be receptive to yourself. Maintain or develop and maintain an open and receptive mind. A mind that will come in contact with life and learn from life. A mind that will come in contact with people and learn from people. A mind that will come in contact with itself and learn from itself. A mind that will come in contact with the teacher and be taken further by the teacher. So I'm going to end with a prayer. I thought I'd end with a prayer, yes, as this line is about a prayer. I entreat the teachers that they will carry on teaching, that the lineage of the Buddha Dharma will remain alive and potent in this world. I dedicate myself to a path of vision and a path of transformation, not only for myself, but for the benefit of others. May I, in whatever way I can, through following the teachings, through serving my teachers, become in my own way a dispeller of darkness in this world of suffering. Thank you.